Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the CONVO Couch. I am Fiorella, and we have a special guest today. His name is Encore Patel. He's a longtime friend of the revolution. Thank you for being here.
No, thank you for having me.
So Encore is here because we're going to just talk about a few things. Specifically right now, as many of you know, Bernie Sanders is surging in every poll. He's number one in Iowa by a large margin. He's number one in New Hampshire also by a large margin. Those two are the first states. He has kept rising in Nevada, California. He's also number one here.
He's doing well in Texas.
Texas. I was just going to say Texas. But as we've seen him surge, we've also seen this coordinated effort to stop him. And we knew about this, right?
We knew it was coming.
The Stop Sanders movement was something that was obvious. There was Obama was said to have involved himself too. We saw what Hillary Clinton went out and said that nobody liked him. We saw what happened with Elizabeth Warren sort of turning on him. And so ever since then, there's been like this effort that's very obvious to stop him. Now, the campaign raised about $700,000 since the attacks surged, and they issued this letter talking about it, how they, how this is one of the things that happened, and even that has gone up since then. So they had it went up to $1.3 million from 70,000 different donations, and that is as of that was 3 p.m. on Tuesday. So obviously this isn't working because I think the more you attack Bernie supporters, and I'll ask you that, the more they seem to kind of just donate to Bernie.
Yeah, not just donate. We get entrenched. We do the research. We figure out what the attacks are. And again, they tend to be fake news. They tend to be spurious. They tend to be just like emotional or just empty attacks. And that, again, encourages us to double down to support our candidate because I think that actually happens across most candidates. When your candidate is attacked, you tend to defend and show up more, donate more, volunteer more. And Bernie Sanders fans, burners, we do that too.
And that's the thing. Like Bernie Sanders has that because his base is a lot of people that are working class, a lot of middle class, working class people. So he doesn't necessarily have to go to a lobbyist and be like, hey, give me more money. It just happens naturally. Brian Noble's also pretty much verified the 1.3 in 24 hours since this ad by the, quote, Democratic Majority for Israel.
Yeah.
And we're going to kind of talk about that a little bit more. And that was first mentioned by this guy, Melbourne Cole is his name. But let's look at exactly what they've been doing, because some of our usual suspects have been the ones that are attacking Bernie Sanders as of late. And one of these people is Neera Tanden. None other than Neera Tanden. So she said, as you're relentlessly attacking Dems running in the primary, try to remember Trump is president. And with a good economy and the Electoral College slant, can get reelected if the Dem nominee is weakened even before the general. And she goes on to talk about, tweeters are now more gleefully attacking the staff of candidates. Some misogynists are going after their past relationships. That is obviously insane. I am asking people to snap out of that level of insanity and come up for air. So she is basically saying, here we go again. These Bernie supporters, they're misogynists. They're attacking us. They're putting, what was the thing with Warren? The snake emojis. They just keep attacking superficial things. Like, obviously some people are going to be meaner than others, but the campaign has always stressed, please, be focused on policy, blah, blah, blah. Not everybody's going to do that, but the majority of Bernie supporters are focused on policy. It is the attacks that are coming this way.
Absolutely. It's like projecting. It's hypocritical. It's one side it's from them.
Yeah.
We can't say anything even factually based on policies, but then they can say that they don't like Bernie because he's old, etc. It just goes on and on where these superficial attacks come from one side. And then when we defend, they call us names again.
It's a form of gaslighting. And that's the word. It's what's been going on. And this other one posted by Jonathan Chait said, many Democrats fear Bernie Sanders would be an extremely weak candidate against Trump. They are right. And so if you open this article, they start talking about Bernie's unpopular ideas. They mentioned banning fracking is unpopular. That
the majority of people support that.
They also mentioned that throwing people off their health insurance.
Even though the majority of people support Medicare for all.
Right. They frame it like you're doing something bad for them. Like, here it is, banning fracking, letting prisoners vote. That's so terrible. Let's see, decriminalizing the border, giving free health care to undocumented immigrants, and eliminating ICE. First of all, Bernie Sanders has never said that they're going to have open borders, which is a whole other attack from the right, which is interesting. The Democrats, who claim to be the party of the immigrants and the working people. As an immigrant myself and my family, to me, it's like they continuously tokenize immigrants. Yet when it comes time to do something for them, they are now attacking from the right.
Yeah. At the Dem convention in Long Beach, Jorge Ramos said something like every 4 years, the presidential candidates, Columbus, the immigrant vote, the Latino vote, right? They're discovering it for the first time. They pander to it and then they leave it. And it's just been the way of the way that the Democratic Party has been operating, unfortunately. But in reality, it's immigrants, at every level that we need to empower and are pushing the movement and our economy.
Exactly.
Fam, real quick, going to this Neera Tanden tweet again. I can't believe she even actually said this, because what she's doing is saying that Trump has built a good economy.
Yeah.
And that the Electoral College will vote for him again.
Yeah.
This is kind of like a really big threat.
They're attacking from the right, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, this is insane.
They're
I can't believe this
attacking
shit.
from the right.
Fucking Neera Tanden. She claims she's a progressive.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But the thing is, third-way Democrats, which she is the epitome of one, with Center for American Progress, all these people, they are Trump Democrats, because they obviously are giving Trump this facade of an idea that he did something for the economy.
Yeah.
When, first of all, the stock market only includes a very minimal amount of people. And, she knows that. I mean, she knows that. This is the problem. She knows that she's lying. She knows that she's misinterpreting this information, misrepresenting the information. And she doesn't care, because at the end of the day, they'd rather prop up Donald Trump than prop up Bernie Sanders. And that's something scary to think about. This is the Democratic Party, the party that's supposed to be for working people, the party that says that Donald Trump is awful, a demagogue, that he, that's wasting all this money and time and energy, and Bernie taking him off the field to go to this impeachment trial. Yet they turn around, vote for his military budgets, and then put out things like this where they're attacking from the right and they're propping him up.
They attack from any way possible, and however disingenuous, whatever lies that they can conjure up. And that's why we stay calm. We go knock on doors, we make the calls, we donate, and we're going to try and get our guy elected. But they're resorting to anything and everything, and you know what? It's going to get worse.
Yeah. And I mean, just going on, Johnny, like article after article. This one says, Bernie is the opponent Trump wants. This is obviously a lie, because we just leaked the audio with the video Johnny put out where Trump was telling all of his supporters at this dinner that Bernie Sanders was the only guy he didn't want Hillary to pick as his VP. So how could Bernie Sanders be the guy Donald Trump wants to face when he was caught literally telling people, oh, yeah, no, he would have been tough to beat? It's just it's too easy to call these things out.
Did you see that encore? Did you see that leaked audio?
No, I didn't see the audio, but let's play it then.
Yeah.
I'm definitely curious.
Let me find it real quick.
It was from like a fundraiser or something back in 16?
Yeah, 18, I think.
2018, they were having a discussion.
Hindsight, he wouldn't have liked to have Bernie
as Hillary's VP.
Yeah. It was a dinner with his associates.
Yeah.
And
associates, criminal.
His son was there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were all saying, "Oh,
and
yeah, they cheated."
The whole
Bernie.
big deal that they released this audio was to be damning evidence that Trump was trying to get Yovanovich fired, and which he says he wants to get her fired, but he can do that. She's an ambassador. He can do that as president. So there's nothing illegal about that. But here's the video.
Had she picked Bernie Sanders, it would have been tougher. It was the only one I didn't want her to pick.
On January 25th, Joseph Bundy released a secret recording while the corporate media is concentrating on his comments on Yovanovich. They talk about Bernie Sanders.
Bernie would have beat Hillary in that right now.
That would have been tougher.
Yeah, I agree.
Because there was no hatred. Right, you're right. There was no hatred.
Millennials
were right.
But
as great as he was, half my motivation in working was not let her do it.
100%.
Right.
And that's what I think a big part of our
race.
race.
Vice president would have been tougher.
Kane was what I couldn't.
But I think Bernie, because all those people that hated her so much who voted for me. I got 20% of Bernie vote. People don't realize that because of trade, because he's a big trade guy. He basically says we're getting screwed on trade. And he's right. I'm worse than he is.
Yeah, you are.
And we can do something about it. I don't know if he could have. But had she picked Bernie Sanders, it would have been tougher. It was the only one I didn't want her to pick. Now, then people say, no, it would have been easier because then her sort of establishment, normal Democrats would have come to me. So she may have lost a lot of votes, too.
You're right, so you don't know.
Well, I don't understand.
I think the Democrats, the only thing they do well is they stick together. So
they're really.
Why is he not speaking up for himself?
He should be going crazy.
Because they took him in
It is funny how he has not gone crazy, right?
Because they took him in a locker room and they had a conversation with him. Of course.
They have to.
Of course, they had a conversation.
He has 3 beach houses.
Of course.
He should be going nuts.
Is he going to be
100%.
running?
I don't think so.
I think he might.
You think he might again?
Because he does a lot of television. Usually when they do a lot of television, that means they're running.
Biden seems like he's.
I like it because I'll be.
I hope Biden.
So
Yeah, I had heard the part with the ambassador and how they use that as a. I didn't hear about the rest of this piece about how he's afraid of Bernie.
yeah, you're not going to hear about that in the mainstream because they don't want to focus on that. They just want to focus on the Russia stuff and the Ukraine stuff. But this is very telling because this, unfortunately for Hillary, shows that Donald Trump has better instincts than she does when it comes to figuring out that Bernie was a threat and figuring out that if she didn't pick him or if he wasn't involved in any way, it would have been he would have won. He won. That's why he won. And also
Whatever
about the fact that he was
Trump.
running. Yeah, whatever you say about Trump.
His instincts.
His instincts when it comes to this kind of thing.
In this specific situation.
Yeah, in this specific situation,
His political
absolutely.
instincts, those generally, just being able to triangulate and pick apart certain demographics and get people to support him. And maybe we can go into India later and how him and Modi have been able to.
And he went out to that big
Howdy
Texas,
Modi.
the Howdy Modi thing. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna go into that a little bit later because that's really important to discuss. This whole Democratic Majority for Israel PAC, though, these people have gone after Bernie with a lot of money, and so they're set to launch an anti-Bernie ad in Iowa. This is the first Democratic group to go explicitly after Bernie in either 2016 or 2020. This is a sign of Bernie's strength in Iowa. And this is what the Democratic establishment fears. Now, I'm going to go a little bit deeper into it. At the next one, I have another one later. But basically, that PAC is putting money for Bloomberg, just so you guys know.
It's a super PAC.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pro-Israel. Okay, got you.
This other person talks about Bernie hasn't really been facing a lot of scrutiny. He's never really been vetted before, and people are now starting to notice.
What a ridiculous statement.
For the first time in his career, Bernie Sanders is facing scrutiny. What?
He's never faced scrutiny before, you guys. I just imagine 2016. It was all a dream.
Yeah.
It was like Lost. That last episode where they were like,
oh yeah, it was all a dream. The dog was dreaming. And yeah.
Forget about the dozen public elections that he's had throughout his career.
Exactly.
So Johnny, let's just go over to who burns his tweet because here's the Democratic Majority for Israel who had on Open Secrets is right here. They're right here. The date and the money they donated to the Democratic Party of New Hampshire. It was the maxed out donation. And then if you keep going, they talk about a problem Bernie Sanders seems to have on more than one front. And it's hard to see here, but they just talk about how the Joe Rogan endorsement. Now let's hear your opinion on the Joe Rogan endorsement, because for many, even some progressives, but mostly the centrists and the establishment people that are very huge on identity politics and have pretty much weaponized this thing, saying, how Sanders is at fault for accepting this endorsement because Joe Rogan has these alt-right tendencies. What is your opinion on that?
Again, I think it's hypocritical when you're talking about unity and bridge building and reaching out, and you have somebody like Joe Rogan who appeals to a different demographic of people. How are you going to throw that vote away? And on top of it, it's not like Bernie gave up anything. He changed his position. He compromised. It's because Bernie is who he is, so passionate, committed, steadfast, that Joe Rogan, who doesn't agree with Bernie on everything, was able to support him. This is the exact kind of endorsement that shows that Bernie can beat Trump. Bring it back to that previous conversation. Like, he's too far left. Why is this right?
Supposed right.
And he's not even, right?
He's never voted Republican.
He said some gross things about some groups of people in the past, which he's generally, I don't know if he's fully apologized for it, but he's walked it back a little bit, and he's changed the specific language, the hateful nature of that language, and toned it down. So it's like one of those things where now people can't grow and change and evolve their politics, and you're going to hold him accountable for what, and not just hold him accountable, but for somehow you're going to blame Bernie for what this guy said 20 years ago, and therefore you should not take the votes that he's going to shepherd our way. It's the most ridiculous political argument that I've heard in a long time, and even though we've been hearing a lot of them. And
I feel like, actions speak louder than words, and although he might have said words, his actions, he hasn't voted Republican, and he's had Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard on the show, so
he refuses to have Warren on the show. He refuses to have any other
Buttigieg,
establishment.
yeah, exactly.
Because they have asked. I want to point out
they've asked. What a trip is that? These other candidates want to be on his show. They don't want, and so now that makes him an even better target.
I would have loved for Warren to be on, just so people could be like, oh, she's here's the thing with Warren. She didn't even want to go on the Fox News town hall. She can't beat Trump. That's the thing. You're ignoring the other side of the country who you may disagree with, but Bernie went there, and all it did was be like, have Republicans be like, man, this guy isn't as bad. He's not this crazy commie that the mainstream media is painting him as. Yeah. And that's what happened with Joe Rogan's audience, because he has a vast majority from people all the way to the left to people all the way to the right.
Like 20 million people end up watching that interview, something like 10 million, 20 million people.
I'll bring it up.
And it's ridiculous at this point to push that away just because of one thing the guy said. And I'm not minimizing what he said, but what I am saying is that I'm not going to agree with everything any person says. And I'm not going to cancel the guy because of one thing when the rest of his actions have said otherwise. And this whole idea, like what you were pointing out, it's hypocritical because we're trying to build unity, build bridges with people we don't agree with, as long as they agree with the establishment narrative of what we should agree with them.
And they're not going to. That's where you get into this this fake, reflection and looking at things in such a diluted way that it just doesn't even make sense anymore on its face.
And here's the thing. You made a good point, Encore. This is what they're afraid of. Yeah. He's speaking in terms, I don't want to say like, he's not an elitist pundit that has this like sort of like arrogant vocabulary. He's speaking to working people. He's speaking to all people. He's not this pundit that, that uses these words, whatever. He's not a polished politician, but he is connecting people by simply saying, hey, like, let's have this conversation. He's not even using the policy points. He's just simply saying it's wrong to not want people to be healthy.
Yeah.
And that's at its basic core, that's the human aspect of it. And people like Neera Tanden, the Third Way, all of these people, they're afraid of people realizing that it's not politics. It's not a Republican or a Democrat thing. It's a human thing. And he's touching on that. And that's what they're so afraid of. They're afraid of Bernie touching all of those people and being like, oh, wow, he's not the guy I thought he was. And that's a threat to them. Bottom line.
100%.
Johnny, let's go back to that tweet, because here the Democratic majority for Israel has a retweet of Mike Bloomberg. And Mike Bloomberg is there saying, I will always have Israel's back. # United for Mike. It's in one of the... Yeah. It's the one where he has 4. He just has those 4 tweets. And gotcha. Yeah. And, they support him because Bloomberg's surprising speech on anti-Semitism, Israel, and Iran. So he's taking the stance of a very pro-Israel. He takes a lot of AIPAC money, in case we're surprised. And so they've been supporting him. So again, just more information on this group. that they're launching an attack against Bernie. The board member was just appointed to the DNC platform committee by Tom Perez.
They're not connected. They're not working behind the scenes.
Not at all. They're just friends. Its communications director previously worked for, I don't know who this person is, actually. That.
Center
them.
for American Progress.
Okay, yeah. So,
Rachel Rosen?
yes, that is her. Okay. And so basically, they have this obvious interest in stopping Bernie Sanders. The political director worked for the D-Trip and the Clinton campaign, and that's who she is right there. And this
is not attacking staffers. This is not attacking people it's just pointing out that
Their
they
connections.
worked for other organizations that had policy that we disagreed with. And guess what? That carries over to their next position in their next campaign, and it biases how and why they take positions against people like Bernie.
Right. And it's obvious, like, people aren't gonna pretend that this isn't a thing. And here they are again, the Democratic Majority for Israel, saying congratulations to our distinguished board member, Megan Stabler, who was appointed to the Democratic National Convention Platform Committee by Chair Tom Perez. So these are the connections that these people have right now. And to be honest, it just keeps going. And here I was not aware of this ad. The PAC that is running it is a separate entity from Democratic Majority for Israel, and I have no association with the PAC. Still, to avoid confusion, I will be taking a leave of absence from the DMFI board until the primary season is over. It's because they're calling them out. They're saying you shouldn't be involved in this conflict of interest. But they are. And Paul Begala, who is one of these people, says, I am still undecided and uncommitted in the presidential campaign, waiting to see who will emerge to be the strongest candidate to defeat Donald Trump. But nobody's going to buy this. Nobody's going to buy that. And so, that's the reality. And another one right here is fun coincidental aside. Only one POTUS campaign has used the Melman Group services. One Seth Moulton, who recently, checks notes, endorsed Joe Biden. So, I mean, it's not that difficult to make these connections. And here, the same head of the Melton Group, who consults with Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Pharma, among a number of other large corporations, just happens to run a second org/PAC smearing Bernie on the flimsiest of pretense. No conflict of interest here, you guys.
I mean, we're finding it here, and it's easy when you're clicking and you have time and look into this, but that's what they're banking on, that the regular people aren't doing this, and they're getting their information from the paid for and bought out corporate media, and so they take this tweets and this, this almost conspiracy-like cadre of folks who are working behind the scenes, and they take that as fact and as experts and people who know what they're doing and are unbiased when literally they've endorsed candidates, they've worked for these organizations. Right. I mean,
they're not literally saying we hate Bernie Sanders, but all their actions behind the scenes are saying we hate Bernie Sanders and we're going to do everything we can to stop him. So you're never going to get the people in power to admit blatantly that they're doing the corruption because they hold the power. So they're going to continue to gaslight you and say this is a conspiracy theory, that you're making connections out of nothing. Another article that they posted, and this is Holly Otterbein, who's not really a friend of Bernie. She's a huge Warren fan. It says, a poll commissioned by Data for Progress found that Elizabeth Warren would perform better on a 1-to-1 primary with Joe Biden than Bernie Sanders, and a Warren ally is seizing on it as evidence that she's the best equipped progressive to take on Biden. So they're making things up now because Bernie Sanders... What if
there's only two people in the primary? What does that even mean?
So Bernie, drop out and let it be Elizabeth and Biden is basically what they're saying, because that benefits us over Trump. No, it doesn't. Who are we kidding here? Poll after poll, it shows, even since 2016, that Bernie Sanders beats Trump by the widest margin. Especially now with the impeachment trial, especially when she goes and refuses to go on Fox News, especially when Joe Biden can't keep coherent sentences together. It would just be a mess.
And not just the polls, the freaking crowd sizes at his rallies. Look at that. The thousands and thousands of people.
Biden gets 100 people, maybe. If that.
Yeah.
And they fall asleep half the time. I mean, I'm not even trying to be mean. I mean, there's literal pictures of these people.
They're like, damn, I'm paid to be here, but
that's another thing that we could go into. Last time people were paid to go to these things, And let's talk about Andrew Yang, because even Andrew Yang has said that he wouldn't be surprised if some of his voters went to support Bernie Sanders in the last rounds of Iowa caucus voting. And this is a development that could strengthen Sanders' already surging campaign in the states. So, I mean, do you think Yang supporters, some of them might go to Bernie? I do.
I do.
I do.
I think it'll be like between 60 and 80% of them. Who are they going to go to?
Yeah. I mean,
Not
whoever's
Biden.
still not Biden.
They're not going to go to Biden.
I don't think so. I mean, maybe a few. Some of them are conservative. Some of them might go to Trump. You know, some of them might go to the right or
That's
might
true.
not
That's
vote.
true.
But if they're caucusing in Iowa for Yang, then at
they're
the end
gonna
of
go.
that caucus period, they
Yeah.
have to go to one of the other candidates.
Okay, yeah.
And if Tulsi's in the race, I think
Or
some
maybe-
of them
yeah,
would go to
a lot
her.
of them
because
would probably
they
go to
built
Tulsi.
they built kind of like
That would make sense
a
also.
relationship.
Which
also,
wouldn't
right?
be bad for Bernie, I think, in the end anyway.
But
so
I think he's probably doing better than Tulsi in Iowa anyway. So if
He
it's
is.
like one of those ranked choice
yeah,
things where
then
if
it would
you're-
be Bernie. Yeah.
You got to go to a candidate who's doing better,
Better.
not worse.
Exactly. So you know what? I 100% believe that. I think that's actually a good thing.
Oh no, he's unifying. Oh no, he's unifying people.
Oh, you can only unify with the establishment, though. You can't unify with anti-establishment candidates. And Yang isn't my favorite candidate by any means. I have my criticism of his policies, but he has positioned himself in a way, at least superficially, or at least on the outside, with the UBI and speaking out against the way the DNC has treated him as an anti-establishment type of candidate.
He's definitely anti-establishment.
Absolutely.
He's not part of the DNC establishment.
No, he's not part of them.
And talking about automation, like that's what like these DNC establishment people
Yeah.
are looking forward to solving
Yeah.
problems. Always technology is going to save us.
Yeah.
Not really. Not when it's marginalizing people of color and
Yeah.
workers,
It's going to
which
cut
Yang
the
is
middleman.
actually speaking to.
Yeah, it's going to lower what they have to pay people, those big corporations.
Robots only take one time. Not even.
Exactly.
It's like their finances are so
Exactly.
bogus because you got to maintain and update
Yeah.
and all this other stuff. It's just a way for them to be inhuman. It's
Yeah.
a way for them to attack people and poor people.
Oh, just keep them reliant
Robots
on the
are better.
system.
You kidding?
So, and just quickly, this article reemphasizes, this person said, when I Google Bernie, I find that he leads Donald Trump by the widest margin of all 2020 candidates. And this is very true. Bernie Sanders does lead by the widest margin. So this is why you can see all the attacks. Now, obviously, logic tells you if they're attacking Bernie, knowing that Bernie leads Trump by the widest margin, they obviously don't care about losing to Trump. That is a fact at this point. They don't
It's
care.
pretty much fact.
They don't care. I mean, you as a Democrat, if you even want to keep your party successful, you're going to put the guy that's best going to beat the other guy on the other team. You're going to put your strongest guy. Bernie Sanders has proven time and time again he's the strongest guy. They know this. So they are avidly working against that because they don't want him to win, period, whether Trump wins or not. And that's something that I think Americans don't really fully grasp yet.
I don't want to grasp it. It hurts me inside. It hurts
Yeah.
my heart. Like these people would rather have Trump than Bernie. That bad? That hurts me. Like I entered, right? I was an independent who became a Democrat because Trump won. There's two teams on the field. We got to be on one side. And if I'm still going to be naive on this and hope that these people would still rally and support behind Bernie if it's Bernie and Trump. I'm just gonna. It just hurts too much to believe that these people would rather have Trump than Bernie and calling themselves Democrats.
Well,
and
Bernie-
they're calling themselves progressive too. Some of these people.
Oh yeah, they're progressive. That word has been hijacked.
Progressive.
It's
What was that? Bernie directly threatens their line of money.
Yeah.
Their money line.
That's all
And
it is.
Trump has been boosting that money line.
right.
Really.
Exactly. All these people, they have money,
It's all comes down to money.
money and power, basically.